And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Before we get to our guest, we'll go to Pro-Life. Pro-Life, good morning.
Good morning. Yesterday I called Dan Foreman and also my state legislators, and I said that at least they need to offer a resolution so that every legislator can vote on what they're going to do about the gun issue. And I was specifically asked them that they need to encourage all the school districts to arm their people. And I don't know if they haven't replied. It's just been one day. But the state legislature and we as citizens, we need to do something about it here in Idaho. So if you call your state legislator and tell them that they at least need to have a resolution encouraging all the school districts to arm up, that's the best thing we can do.
Will they listen?
What's that?
Do you think they'll listen?
I don't know. If the Idaho Education Association would take that position, it'd happen overnight. But they're afraid of the Idaho Education Association. There's people in the state legislature that don't even believe in public schools. They believe it's the wrong, improper role of government. But they won't ever go against public education because you can't get elected if you go against public education.
Well, it sounds like the voice of experience.
Yeah, it's exactly right. We have a daughter that became a public school teacher. She grew up in a gun-friendly, atmosphere. Now she says she's afraid of guns because she's a public school teacher. She's in that culture. And so we got a big President Trump and all of us, we have a big problem on our hands. The public education people are messed up in the head about guns. So that's all I got to say.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Pro-Life. Remember, what's your favorite radio station?
It's 580 KIDO. It's the best in the West. It's also on 107.5.
Well, thank you, Pro-Life.
All right. See you.
Bye-bye. We're joined now by a young lady by the name of Bridget. Bridget Frank joins us. Who?
Hello.
Sometimes it's a little tough to find us this morning, Bridget, but we appreciate having you on today.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate you taking time to hear what I have to say. So thank you.
Well, I know it's a tough topic that we're going to talk about today, and you and I have met on the trail for many, many years, and I wish it were under better circumstances, and we'll have you back for a longer time in studio with your friends as well for Ride for 22 and to promote the spring gathering. But what brings you on the air today, Bridget?
Well, it happened about September 23rd, and so today's the 5th-month anniversary of my son's passing, the worst day of my life. He was 22, serving in the Navy. Amazing young man. He served on a sub. He was on the USS Wyoming. It's an SSBN 742, actually. And he had been serving probably about 4 years. He initially started going in as an amazing, he's a brilliant kid, first of all. And with that, it said, okay, great, we need somebody in the nuke school. So he started going that route. And with, some kids that are so brilliant, but the school is definitely very, very hard. It was hard for him to put everything on paper. So he transferred into being a missile technician. But he was always sub. So serving on a sub definitely puts you in a different mental state. And you get you deal with more mental issues. You're, depleted from the sun. You can't exercise. And my son was an amazing, amazing physical, shape. He actually became their, head of their physical department. He would take them on runs and do all the stuff. So he loved physical exercise. But when you put young, brilliant minds in a submarine, their mental issues start arising more and more. So he was faced with a lot of issues. And, as every single time he went for deployment, he drew a noose and he dried his deployment date. So that kind of tells me where his mental status was when he went under that, underwater, because it's really difficult. I'm not saying any other kid who goes under military duress is, any different. But I know that the submarine, serving in a submarine just pushed him over the edge. He was a happy kid.
And he was a kid that loved America, loved his country, and loved his state.
Absolutely. He was dedicated to serve. That's all he wanted to do. And he knew that this was the right place for him, but he was very pushed and driven to serve in a sub because he was that type of, man you'd go to in case there was an emergency underwater. So he really, really, did everything he could mentally. But he came up one time. He actually reached out to his superiors. He said, "Hey, I'm not doing good. I'm really not doing good." And they said, "Well, what can we do under here, underwater? We can't do anything. You have a good month, dude. Kind of man up. And we'll talk about this when we surface." Well, when we debrief these kids, it's a stigma. It really is a stigma. What can they do to, reach out to these kids in a different way, to not put them down and not to do other, just to say, hey, yeah, if you reach out for help, we're going to have to do some major issues and you're going to be knocked out of your pay and your rank and all this other stuff. And it's amazing. But when this happened to my son last year, I've had so many parents with kids who are in the sub program, either nuke or not. The kids break and something happens. They just can't do it. So the strength and the aptitude of these kids, it's difficult. And here we have a young man who did everything he could to serve. And when he came up from his, deployment, within 24 hours, he was no longer with us. And I have his birthday coming up February 28th, and he was going to turn 23. But it's ironic that 22 veterans a day kill themselves, and one active service duty kill themselves a day. It blows my mind. And a lot of these stats aren't listed or promoted. So we're missing out on, what we can do to help these kids. It's just kind of swept underneath the rug. The parents and their wives, because my son was married, they just kind of say, okay, here's his, money, here's money, his life insurance. We're just going to, don't talk about it. This is, it's there, yeah. But they want us to sweep it underneath the rug, and I can't. We've got to have more awareness of our mental, status of our kids and, everybody else. We're having so much, higher suicide rate now. And so it just kind of says, what's going on? What can we do? And I work at a center, it's called Brain Balance, and I see these kids going through so much depression and so many things. So it definitely attributes to how we live now. The environment is so different, and it all ties into this, wonderful issue of guns and mass shootings. We're pushing our kids, and we just need to be there for them,
Well, Bridget, we are sorry for your loss, and we're going to have you in studio, and we'll do an Idaho Insights, and obviously this is something that doesn't get reported. And when we met at the kids' fair, I either meet you at the balloons or the kids' fair. I don't know what that says about our social lives, but you said, Kevin, this needs to get out. So we're going to get the message out. But for people listening right now at KIDO Talk Radio, what would you like to say to folks that have service members or others that we want to prevent them from suicide?
The more we reach out to our kids, the better. But the thing is, it's in with what's inside of the military. You know, we call out to our kids, or they can call us at, boot camp, but they don't have an opportunity to talk. And those kids are, again, told to man up. But we have to tell our kids we are there for them, and there is a way out. It is okay, because we don't want them to break. We can't let them. And that's our mission, is to do everything we can, knowing, how much they're loved. But we have to let them know to reach out where they can. But again, it's that stigma within inside of when they're, start serving. And that's really where we need to go, is to help them understand what we need to do to, make sure that these kids aren't going to break. And so if we can just be there 110% and get the word out to, our legislators, and get out to the government and, military, anybody in the military, tell them, hey, if you see a kid that's suffering or needing help, or even calls out for help once, that is a huge red flag. We need to be there for those kids. So it's difficult indeed.
It is, and we appreciate your advocacy. Now, again, we'll have you back on with the Ride for 22, and we've got the spring event coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the spring event that we have coming up is, it's just right around that corner. I can't even believe that. And they are going to be hosted by Dusty Lee and the Claim Jumpers, and it's going to be at Ironwood Social, and it's right there in Glenwood. And we're just going to have a whole, group of people there, and there's going to be a 2009 Jeep Unlimited for display, but you can buy tickets for this drawing, and it's going to be raffled off April 21st at our huge third annual April Veterans Suicide Awareness event. That's going to be at High Desert Harley Davidson, and this is going to be huge. We're going to have over 500 veterans who have succumbed to suicide and active duty members honored on this ride. And it's going to be amazing. And that's in April. But again, coming up this February 24th at 6 p.m., we're doing the spring gathering at Ironwood Social.
Well, Bridget, our friend Peyton wanted me to convey this to you. He said, please tell Bridget he commends you for your bravery. It's inspiring. And he thanks your son for his service, hers for hers, and for your sacrifice. You're speaking God's words, Bridget.
Yeah, amen. Let's help our kids. Thank you.
Well, Bridget, we will definitely pump this up some more, and we appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely have you back.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you, Bridget. Take care.
Take care.
All right. Much more coming up next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio, ripped from the pages of our website. You guessed it, KIDOTalkRadio.com, is a story concerning the chairman, the president of the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, and the chairman of the State Affairs Committee, Chairman Lurcher. Greg Pruitt is with us now to discuss a possible lawsuit against the chairman. Mr. Pruitt, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for DJing at our forum for us, man. It was fantastic.
I was so proud of you and Seth and everybody else. Truly, your group continues to grow, and we will talk about that. Mr. Barker has some comments in there today. If you haven't checked that out yet, in today's paper. But you and Chairman Lurcher have a long history.
Yeah, he's most gun bills go through his committee, so yeah, we kind of know each other a little bit.
Yeah,
at least at a political level. So yeah, we've got a little bit of history there.
Indeed. So we go to a video that you posted yesterday on Facebook saying that you're fed up, that reportedly Chairman Lurcher has made some comments that some would consider slander, or they are considered slander. You're looking at a preliminary, looking at a lawsuit. You know the story. You are the story. Can you give us the details on what I've kind of sketched out here?
Yeah, so I got approached by Representative Christy Zitto. She is our bill sponsor, and her and several other lawmakers had sat down with Chairman Lurcher, and he confronted them about our PAC reports, our sunshine reports. And apparently, at the end of this conversation, he looked at him and said, "Greg Pruitt is a con man. He is a fraud," and basically insinuated that from the end of our PAC until now, that I myself personally have basically been stealing all donations and keeping them for myself. And, if there's one thing I won't put up with, if you want to attack my organization for our methods and our tactics and the issues that we're trying to fight for, I don't have an issue with that. But to say stuff like that to other lawmakers who, and as you know, Kevin, once a rumor has started in the Capitol, it spreads very quickly. And so what he's claiming is that when our PAC ended back in basically the end of 2015, that there was no sunshine reports. So clearly Greg is stealing the money because there's no sunshine reports. And if he had taken 2 seconds to look up that we had started a 501c3 at the exact same time that the PAC ended, he would know exactly where all of our money was going. And so I'm extremely frustrated because I don't, calling someone a criminal when you have zero proof is not something you're allowed to do.
You would be correct about that. You were very emotional about it. And so where do we go from here?
Well, we've reached out to our attorney, Alexandria Kincaid, in preliminary discussions about filing a lawsuit for either slander or defamation. And, we would like an apology as an organization. We would like an apology from Chairman Lurcher, for making those insinuations. I mean, it's really egregious, especially since, I am the president of the group. A rumor like that can, severely damage our credibility. And that's why we're actually looking into the lawsuit portion of that. But, Kevin, you've known me for a long time. I keep all my ducks in a row. I have all the emails from the Secretary of State's office. I spent over a year with them working to correct some errors that we had made in the reporting system. And in fact, they even admitted on their own that they made their own errors and not catching these mistakes that we had made earlier. And, I work my butt off, to keep my character in line because that's just the way that I am. And so for him to, come out and insinuate that I'm literally a con man was extremely frustrating.
More with our great friend Greg Pruitt next from the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. Traffic and weather together. And back to our great friend Greg Pruitt from the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. Well, I hear that you make a lot of money doing this. They call you Big Money Greg.
Well, if I'm making money, I don't know where it's going. I was back in my video. If you saw it, I literally yesterday had to tell my mechanic that he can't fix all of my car because I just can't afford to do it. In my video, I fully disclosed that my monthly salary for well over 30 hours a week, my monthly salary is $350 a month as the president of the organization. The percentage, most 501c4s, the percentage that they take for their salaries is somewhere between 40 and 60%. With the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, our salary is 8%. So we do everything we can to limit the amount of salary that I get. And as a retired Iraq veteran, I'm able to do this at a much lower, much lower rate than most 501s can do because I have some retirement money and, we keep our costs down. So I think the whole thing was just extremely insulting, especially since I did it for free for 3.5 years. And you've known that, Kevin. And so it's, you can attack the organization as far as our methods and tactics and what we believe in, but you can't go out and accuse somebody of a crime without really solid proof.
So, in other words, the message to Chairman Lurcher, apologize, and all's well that ends well. If not, there could be a possible lawsuit.
Yeah, I think he should apologize to the organization for the accusation, and it wasn't. And I've actually had people in eastern Idaho tell me that he's been saying similar things, and so I think an apology would be sufficient. And at the same time, give House Bill 444 a hearing, by the way, and let's have a discussion about stand your ground.
Finally, we've got a minute left. Your thoughts on the gubernatorial forum that y'all put together. And we heard from Dr. Ahlquist. We heard from the Congressman Labrador. We didn't hear from the Lieutenant Governor. Your thoughts on what you heard from those two?
Yeah, I thought for the most part they were pretty similar in their stances. I thought both of them could have been much stronger on campus carry as well as the expanding constitutional carry. But overall, I think they were pretty similar in their stances. And overall, I thought the forum went well. We did it for free for most of the tickets, and so the turnout wasn't as good as we would have liked. But there was a lot of people that watched online as well. So I think it turned out great for our first ever forum that we tried, and we definitely learned some things that we would change in the future.
I thought it was great. Awesome job, Greg. Don't be a stranger.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate your help, brother.
Thank you, sir. Goodbye.
All right.
Our great friend Greg Pruitt coming up next. Your calls with me, Kevin Miller, on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good.
And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. I do want to remind you, if you want more information of that story concerning the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance and Chairman Lurcher, you can go to KIDOTalkRadio.com. In addition to that, a big story there about people planting grapes in Idaho, and will grapes replace the potato? Now, there'd have to be an awful lot of grapes being grown here in the Gem State to make that happen. Coming up, we'll talk to Senator Fulcher, get his thoughts on the campaign. We really didn't get into that enough yesterday, so we will hear what he has to say as well. Again, phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Before we get to Tom in Boise and Big John, we are waiting for Jeff Monasso of Fox News Radio. While we're waiting for Jeff, the president very fired up concerning arming teachers. He had a chance to sound off about this yesterday.
Your concept and your idea about it's called concealed carry, and it only works where you have people very adept at using firearms, of which you have many. And it would be teachers and coaches. If the coach had a firearm in his locker when he ran at this guy, that coach was very brave. Saved a lot of lives, I suspect. But if he had a firearm, he wouldn't have had to run. He would have shot, and that would have been the end of it. And this would only be, obviously, for people that are very adept at handling a gun. And it's called concealed carry, where a teacher would have a concealed gun on them. They'd go for special training, and they would be there, and you would no longer have a gun-free zone. Gun-free zone to a maniac, because they're all cowards. A gun-free zone is let's go in and let's attack, because bullets aren't coming back at us. And if you do this, and a lot of people are talking about it, and it's certainly a point that we'll discuss.
There we have it, the President of the United States. And we've talked about this for quite some time, arming teachers as a way of hardening a target. Wayne LaPierre from the NRA, he was sounding off about this at, you guessed it, CPAC. And some of his comments were well received. Others were condemned by the media. And there's no thought, of course, the media is going to condemn that. So we will take a look at that. We do have Jeff Monasso, who joins us now from Fox News Radio. Jeff, good morning. Jeff? Okay, I don't think we have Jeff on that one. Well, let's try it again. Jeff, are you there? Tom? Jeff? Anybody?
I'm Tom from Boise.
All right. Well, okay, Tom, please hang on. We had our mini producer thing, the online thing, go off. I know that's too much information for folks, but Jeff, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Technically, these things get either that or, look, my eyes might be going, so you never know on that one. kind of like a lot of people in their savings accounts. So we've got this new study where many Americans have more credit card debt than money in their savings account. Is this something that we should be alarmed about, or is this the new normal?
Well, I mean, yes and no. It's not the new normal, according to this latest survey, and there is some good news here. Personal finance rate site Bankrate.com reports that 33% of Americans say that they've got more credit card debt than emergency savings. But while 1 in 3 Americans are financially ill-equipped for an emergency, that number, Kevin, is down. It's down from 43% of Americans whose credit card debt outweighed their savings in 2016, and down even more from 2015. In fact, it's the lowest level in 8 years of the survey. The survey also shows that 58% of Americans say their emergency savings fund exceeds their credit card debt, which is up from 52% from the year before. The survey cites the economy, jobs, and it basically spells out kind of a turnaround where Americans are kind of flipping things around. They're able to save more, and they're more focused on their debt and getting that debt paid off. So that's a good thing. This is showing progress, though Americans, according to another report, Americans' total credit card debt, Kevin, continues to climb, reaching an estimated $905 billion. That's an 8% increase from the year before. And the average household is carrying about $15,000 or so in credit card debt as a balance. So that's something to be mindful of and careful of. However, more and more Americans are paying off that debt, and they're turning that into a surplus in terms of emergency savings, and so that's a good thing.
Well, again, I'm glad everybody has a job. They're going to need it to pay off their debt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeff Monosso, on another note, it is the off season. Any thoughts on what you're doing to prepare for another season of exciting football? I know it's going to be a while, but we haven't talked a game in a long time.
Yeah, we haven't. How you still do? Are you doing all right after that Super Bowl? I've been thinking about you.
I'm still hurting, but I don't know if it's a good thing that Aaron Rodgers is dating Danica Patrick.
Well, look, there's been a couple of strange tweets from Aaron regarding one of his quarterbacks coach and some others and some other changes in the front office at Green Bay. And I don't know if that means that there's some things coming down where the rumor mill starts. And, are we seeing another deal with Brett Favre where they're starting to push him out? I don't know. I think he's still an amazing quarterback. He's not Tom Brady, but he is, I think, one of the best. And so we'll see. As far as what do I think on the off season, I think I'm still watching the Olympics, and I haven't really given it much thought.
Jeff Monosso, we always appreciate you. You take care.
Have a great weekend.
All right, Jeff Monosso, Fox News Radio. Okay, Tom in Boise. My apologies. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
No problem. Good morning, Kevin. Hey, I just wanted to let everybody know that there's this in the wake of this terrible disaster, this terrible thing that happened in Florida. There's a hashtag ban the NRA movement trying to go on where they're trying to get corporations to drop their support for the NRA. And today, even though Alamo Enterprise and National, the car rental agency, said it doesn't politicize and it doesn't get into politics, did drop their support for the NRA. I immediately called them up, and even though they're a great company, I've used them in the past. I canceled my car reservations and I went with Hertz because Hertz still supports that. But there's no better organization than the NRA for training firearm safety. They've trained people in times of war. They support background checks. In fact, they lobbied for background checks way back when. And they're the only bastion of hope, in my opinion, one of the greatest bastions of hope for Second Amendment rights and firearm safety. And it's just crazy when you want firearm safety that the left is attacking the one organization that's pro firearm safety in schools. They have Eddie the Eagle program, Refuse to Be a Victim program for females. And I think it's all crazy. It's all upside down. So I want to let everybody know out there, support the companies that support the NRA and practice safe firearms usage.
Well, what scares me is that everybody, all of a sudden, it's the NRA is evil. You have these children that are saying things that, look, the older we get, the more depth of knowledge, the more life experience that we have. And to have these kids that have already been traumatized, and in my opinion, all of a sudden they're political activists and reciting the bondage that the NRA is evil and, stopping a killer like Mr. Cruz is as easy as defunding the NRA is the height of ignorance.
Unbelievable. Well, I appreciate your voice, Kevin, and the voice you give us and allowing us to come on your show and talk.
I like the company, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Have a good
sir.
morning. All right, you too, our friend Tom. Let's go to Big John with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Big John.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. So regarding Scott Peterson, that waited 12 minutes to enter Building 12, well, I wonder, just exactly what kind of training he had and what kind of thought processes he'd employed to develop and keep his courage up.
Well, and Big John, I've never had to face this, and let's hope
I haven't either.
Let's hope and pray that none of us ever have. But there comes a time, and we hear about it in movies, where you either, maybe he was waiting for backup. I don't know, but I mean, as people are getting shot, why would you sit back and not do anything about it? And obviously the guy had to not be a law enforcement officer anymore. But I mean, okay, we're talking about kids. And, even the gun grabbers, what are they going to say? Well, he could have cost more people their lives. And, this is a very emotional time. And unlike a lot of folks, Big John, I want to talk about this rationally and have a discussion and try and figure something out here. But vilifying the NRA and March for Our Lives, with all due respect, the hyperbole that is running wild is just adding to the fear. What needs to happen, and I'm sure our law enforcement agencies have and continue to work on how to stop the unthinkable, as opposed to going up to a politician and comparing them to the killer, or saying to a mother, we're going to do more to protect your kids than you ever will. With all due respect, how dare somebody say that to a mother just because the mother is a conservative activist and believes in the Second Amendment? You see what I'm saying? Am I offbeat on that?
No, I don't think so. I think you're right on, Kevin. And, and people who carry out adequate and necessary training, which would include keeping yourself mentally ready, that if you're carrying, you should be ready to use that gun if you need to. But you also need to know when to pull it and when not to, because a lot of times people make an error in judgment in not pulling it, or maybe sometimes they make an error in judgment when they should have pulled it. So, it's a balancing act. I mean, it's not an easy thing. And like you, I have never been in that kind of situation. So, yeah, we don't know how we'd act, but all we can do is just think it through and make sure that we have our nerve when we're carrying a gun, and just use good judgment and be rational. What else can you do?
That's what we need, some people to be rational.
That's right, and to do anything else, plays right into the gun grabber's hands, because every time somebody makes a mistake, and somebody if you shoot somebody and you didn't really need to pull that gun, well, then you're going to be in jail. You're going to have a lot of legal problems, but also it plays right into the people who want to take guns away from us, like people like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and others who want to disarm us. And we can't afford to be disarmed. Not if we want to keep our freedom.
Thank you, Big John.
Thank you, Kevin. I love your show. And, you know, it's like Tom said. I mean, you give us all a voice. Now, what would we do without you?
Well, more importantly, what would I do without you guys? My dogs get tired of hearing what I have to say.
Well, yeah. I can think of another guy on the radio that I won't mention right now that loves his dog as well. So.
I know who you're talking about. He's an old friend of mine.
Is he?
He is. If it's the man from Virginia, if that's who I'm thinking of. So.
Okay.
All right, Big
All
John.
right, well, you have a good day, Kevin.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. 5-8. Boy, it's chilly outside. I love when people on the radio say something obvious. More of your calls next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And let's go back to the phones. Brian in Meridian, you're on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Brian.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Living the dream, brother.
Hey, one thing, one thing I'm not hearing anybody talk about with this deputy down in Florida is that humans have a fight or flight reaction. Most law enforcement officers go through an entire career without ever getting shot at or in a shooting type situation. I'm not making an excuse for this guy, but I'm just saying everybody ought to consider that unless you've been shot at before, you probably ought to understand what's going on physiologically with the guy. And you've got a guy who's by himself, who's armed with a handgun, who hears what sounds like automatic weapons fire and people running from buildings screaming. You know, the guy froze. Our soldiers and Marines have done that since war started. You know, people freeze when they panic. Some people do anyway. And I think it's telling that the guy resigned after that. I'm thinking that he recognized that he's not cut out for that situation. And so that instead of staying on the job, I think that's a good thing. But anyway, maybe before people rake this guy over the coals, they ought to, give him a little bit of a benefit of the doubt that, when the lead's in the air, people do different things.
Yeah.
Anyway, take care, Kevin. Have a great day.
Hey, Brian, hold on. Before you go,
Yeah.
Because I was thinking the same thing, but when you have the sheriff come out and rip him, that's what seemed odd to me. That the sheriff in the press conference saying he made a mistake, I expect him to go in.
Well, I heard that too, and I think, this is an opinion. I don't know the facts in more than anybody else that's talking about it, but the expectation of a law enforcement officer is that you're going to defend the public. I get that, and I'm a former law enforcement officer myself. And so the sheriff's expectation is that his employees, the deputies, are going to do what they do to defend the public. And perhaps he was, sort of ripping him because he didn't meet that expectation, not because he did anything wrong, so to speak. I don't know. That's speculation on my part, but
that's what we do every morning here,
Brian. Knows
Brian.
more than we do in terms of the investigation. So maybe the guy did admit, I just didn't, I cowered up and didn't want to go in there. So I don't know. But there's just that other aspect of the human condition that is, fight or flight when things go south.
Brian, great points. Thank you for listening.
Hey, take care.
All right. KIDO Talk Radio, it is time for traffic and weather. And let's go back to the phone calls. Let's go to Common Sense Ken on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Common Sense Ken. Hello, Ken. All right. Tea Party Bob, you don't have a lot of time, but you're going to bring us home for this hour.
Well, I'm going to bring something up that nobody wants to hear. I don't think these kids actually know what they're doing, and I think they're just kind of reacting. But if you go back to the real problem, it has to do with bullying and it has to do with suicides of students in high school. And just go back to the Columbine shooting, which was 19 years ago, the first highly publicized shooting at Columbine, before entering Columbine High School and before attempting to ignite the first explosive. before shooting the first student, the end result of the Columbine was intended to be a suicide. And we need to find out why this is happening. They think they know it's a lot to do with bullying. So we're going to do a show on Sunday night with a psychologist, Corinne Buttrell, who's had 30 years experience in education, clinical psychology, and talk about this.
A call and a promo all at the same time. How far you've come.
Well, we're working on it. I'm becoming more like you every day.
Except in the waistline.
Well, that's for sure.
See you soon, brother.
Kevin, have a great day. See you this morning. Bye.
Bye-bye.